Hello everybody, and welcome to another stud story. This one is number 3, and I know I've done the first 2 on former NWA World Champions that I actually wrestled. I'll be continuing that series, but I have one today that just occurred to me when I saw Continental Championship Wrestling show number 3 that is now on the YouTube channel, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. And this one has a special significance for fans out there all around the world, as a matter of fact. And I've got a little story that I'd like to tell about it, and it's what happened to wrestling, okay, basically. And on June 29th of 1985, we were at Boutwell Auditorium, where we wrestled every Monday night. And for the first time in the history of Continental and Southeastern and in my promotions, Vince McMahon Jr. decides to bring his show to the building across the street from us on the same night, and trying obviously to do what he had started to do to territories around the world and around the country, is kill everybody's business, take over their businesses basically. So I'll get back to that part of it in a minute, but when you watch this number 3, it's only 9 minutes long, and I need to talk to fans and make sure everybody realizes that these shows are about 36, 37 years in some cases after they were recorded. And this one, number 3, is the only one that we don't have an entire program for. We just have 9 minutes of it. And by golly, it's the greatest 9 minutes of wrestling show probably ever on television. Really, a tremendous thing happens in this Continental Championship number 3. So if you've seen it already, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you need to go and watch this, because Tommy Rich starts this program out against one of the Nightmares. It is one of the best wrestling matches I have ever seen. Probably lasts about 7, 8 minutes at least. And in the very beginning of it, Tommy Rich just attacks the Nightmare in the far corner, and he pulverizes him with a few punches. He sends him across the ring into the turnbuckle, and he gives him the highest backdrop probably in the history of wrestling. He puts him probably at least 15, maybe 20 feet in the air. It's it's a great start to that wrestling show. Obviously, Tommy Rich and Johnny Rich. Johnny had been hurt previously. The Nightmares had been for weeks in these Continental shows coming out, having their flowers. Where's Johnny? They had hurt Johnny. They're bragging about Johnny not being there. Well, in this match, Tommy's only wrestling one of them, but at the end of it, both of them obviously get involved. And they start working Tommy over, and they find out real quick where's Johnny, because Johnny makes a comeback. The reason we're talking about this is because I want people to pay attention to it if you haven't seen it, and if you had, you know what I'm talking about. When Johnny Rich hits the ring, that building in Boutwell that night is totally full. And there's 2 ring battle royal. You see the second ring during the course of watching this match. In fact, they go into the second ring and then work their way back into the first ring. Anyway, it's a wild match. It has a tremendous ending, but it's only 9 minutes long. And I apologize for that. And I don't think we're going to run into any more of that, but these are old programs. And just the content of this is just really tremendous. But the story about this is I want to spend a little time here explaining to wrestling fans what happened to their wrestling. And in the beginning of, I went and worked for WWF and for Vince Sr. in Madison Square Garden. I worked for him in Philadelphia. I came out of Florida. A lot of wrestlers were coming out of Florida and wrestling for WWF back in those days, because the Florida tape was up in New York. And so Vince Sr., once Vince Sr. handed it over to his son, he was about to die. Vince Jr. decided, and he had the opportunity to get a national television, he decided that he wanted to be the only wrestler. That everybody else and all these other wrestlers and all these other promoters that had formed the National Wrestling Alliance, some of them had their own, the American Wrestling Alliance, the AWW, there was all types of different companies around the world with wrestlers by the thousands that were making a living wrestling, and promoters that were making a living doing the same thing, promoting the sport. And Vince Jr. decides, well, they don't need to be here. I want it all. So Vince had started already in about 1984, as soon as he took over for his father, to begin the process. He basically got himself into Georgia. He took over the Georgia territory. He ended up with Ted Turner's satellite channel. He already had a national broadcast of his own. He was in a position where he could easily make it happen, and he decided that's what he wanted to do. So he had started going into different territories already, and basically killing them within one night, the very first night he went there. He shut down some of the biggest territories in the country with some of the greatest wrestlers in the world. And he decided on June 29th, the night that this program that you're watching, this Continental Show number 3, that night he decided that he was going to bring his troupe to Birmingham, okay? And so he not only decided he's going to bring it on the same night as which we wrestled, but he was going to run across the street into the Birmingham Coliseum, which held about 15,000 people. Boutwell held about 8,000 people. Boutwell we were wrestling in every Monday night. So he made the mistake of advertising it about a month ahead of time. And so I sat down with my brother, Bob Armstrong, some of the people who were involved with the promotion, Continental Championship Wrestling, and we decided that we're going to bury him in his first night in Birmingham. And you can say that seems like a real task. And in fact, to make the situation worse, Vince Jr. decided that he's going to bring the stars that we found and created in wrestling to run against us across the street from us that night. He brought Hulk Hogan, who came to us as Terry Boulder. His name is Bolia, but we started him out in Continental as Terry Boulder. Made a star out of him, moved him into Knoxville. He went from there to New York, and the rest was history. He put on that same card Brutus the Barber Beefcake. He actually came along with Terry Bollea to Pensacola in the Southeastern territory in '79, and as a big buddy of his, and we made a star out of him as well as Hulk. And so Hulk comes to wrestle against us. Brutus the Barber Beefcake comes to wrestle against us, and then he brings a third one, a guy that had worked for us for many, many years, a really, really tremendous talent, and he's going to become the honky tonk man. But for us, obviously we didn't work under that name. Anyway, he has these three guys in his main events on that card across the street from us, okay? We are the small players. He's the big star, okay? And he comes there expecting that he's going to draw like he has done in a lot of these other territories that he's gone in and decided to take over. He's going to come that first night, he thinks, and draws $15,000, sell out that big building, crush our promotion. We'll all get disenchanted, realize that we're not going to be able to fight him, we're not going to be able to last. And he's going to think that he's going to be closing down, basically, Continental Championship Wrestling. So that night, we had this discussion a few weeks before, as soon as we found out about it, how are we going to compete with what he's going to do. We realized he's going to bring the stars that we built and made stars out of originally to work against us. So we decided we're going to do a 2-ring battle royal, which is one of the big time events in all of wrestling, 2-ring battle royals. And not only we used to charge an extra $1 when we did these 2-ring battle royals because they were big, spectacular events. You usually had 20, sometimes 30 wrestlers on those cards. And so on this one, we loaded up like normal, but we raised the price. In fact, we dropped the price $1 a ticket. So they're going to get in to see a 2-ring battle royal with great stars. That match with Tommy Rich and the Nightmare was one of the opening matches on that card. You see it on TV, and you'll see it in that Continental Championship Wrestling show number 3. That was on that card that night. So in the course of that night, we went out there, started bell time, and Boutwell's got 8,000 people in there. We've sold it out. It's full. And so we didn't know what was going on. We didn't go across the street, sent nobody over there to check and see how many they had in the Coliseum against us with this big show that they had brought to town. But about 2 matches in Boutwell, we had a knock on the back door, and the guy in the back door says, Hulk Hogan's out here. Would you want to let him in? I said, absolutely, let him in. Sure, he's a friend. And Hulk came in, and we stood in the hallway. He hadn't seen the crowd yet, but we stood in the hallway where the entrance was, and he says, Ron, he goes, I said, well, hey, how y'all doing over there? And he goes, oh, Ron, he goes, we don't have 1,000 people in a 15,000 seat building. He goes, I've never seen it like this. It's unbelievable. And about that time, he heard a big pop out there, and all we had to do was walk through one door and go out onto the stage. And he heard the big pop, and he went, oh my God, what was that? And he goes, oh, I think that's the crowd, that's the house. And he says, can I see it? And so we walked through the door, and he looked at the big sellout, and he went, oh my God. He goes, Ron, he goes, this is unbelievable. He goes, we're killing them everywhere we go. We're putting everybody out of business. And he goes, what did y'all do? You know, and I said, oh, well, we're just promoting, man. We're competing. If that's what we got to do, we're competing. So he left, and about 20 minutes later, along came Brutus, the barber, Beefcake, and he's same tale. He goes out and looks, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, wow, y'all kill us out. He goes, we got nobody. And then finally, along comes the honky-tonk man, Wayne Ferris, great guy. Wayne comes in, he hears that crowd, and he goes out. He's like the rest of them. He goes, wow, Ron. He goes, I don't know. He goes, you guys may make it. Y'all have a real chance. He goes, everywhere we go, we're killing all these towns and all these territories. You know, we're shutting them down. And he goes, I think that you guys have a possibility of really fighting this, maybe lasting a long, long time. So basically, the end of the story, this was June 29th, 1985. In 1988, we're still going strong. Everybody else pretty much is gone. But they're having a hard time killing us because we had some great talent, we had some great fans, we had some loyal people. And so, you know, for those that, don't understand the story and maybe never heard the story about Vince and how he decided, and I don't think there was a bad bone in his father. Vince Sr. was a very, very upstanding guy. Everybody loved him. All the National Wrestling Alliance promoters loved him. He came to the National Wrestling Alliance meetings, and they allowed him to sit in, and he wasn't even a part of it because they had such respect for him. And when he sold it to his son that had no respect for wrestling, none whatsoever, no ability, and really didn't have any idea what real wrestling was all about. I tell this story because those of you that don't know, this is how it ended. This is how it all started. And this is what brought down wrestling. It's what brought down the territories. And for all you fans out there, there are millions of you out there every day that watch wrestling, but you don't watch what's out there today, and you haven't for years, and you never will, because it's as far away from the real thing as you could possibly get, and everybody that watches it knows it. So this has been my story for today, my stud story. This is the third one. We're going to do a lot of others. Taking a little more time in this one than I'm probably going to take in others. But I think this night, June 29th, 1985, has some special significance in the history of wrestling, and I just wanted to kind of bring that to everybody's attention. Thank you all for watching these and for your support on Southeastern Rewind, and I really, really appreciate all of you coming back again and again, watching these shows. Please watch that Continental Championship Wrestling #3. It's short, but it's dynamite. And also, thank you so much for being a fan and still being a fan of old school wrestling.